Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Is there a more iconic way to kick off a weighty discussion than by leaning on a classic phrase? "Ethan Love, we have to talk," Lillian declared, her eyes locking onto mine with a seriousness that made me instinctively wonder if I had crumbs clinging to my lips. Just in case, I wiped my mouth on my sleeve, feigning casualness. Moments earlier, we'd been weighing the pros and cons of buying a used Honda 50 versus sticking with the bus for my regular wholesale runs. Clearly, this talk wasn't a continuation of that mundane debate. "All right, Lillian," I said, reclining slightly. "You've got my attention. Are you leading or should I?" My attempt at humor fell flat. Her expression remained unwavering. Oh boy. This wasn't just any kind of serious. This was unyielding Wonder Woman-level determination. "Ethan Love, we need to address our relationship," she began, her voice steady but weighted. "I honestly can't remember the last time we really connected. It feels like we're drifting further apart every day." I had been bracing for this. Just yesterday I had stumbled upon a conversation that laid everything bare. Those words I overheard had been playing on repeat in my mind ever since. Lillian's mother, Deirdre, had always been devout to a fault. Religion was more than faith for her. It was her life's work. Her days revolved around Butler's Lives of the Saints, and she juggled participation in not one but two church study groups, delving into the holy lives of the departed with an obsessive fervor. Deirdre's dedication didn't stop at study. She arranged altar flowers, scrubbed church floors, laundered vestments, and meticulously ironed choir robes. Her pride and joy, however, was crafting camelettes so dazzlingly white they could rival anything in Westminster Cathedral. She revered Father Benedict, the austere parish priest, and acted as his loyal enforcer, tending to the sick and poor while sternly reprimanding wayward children in the name of God. From a young age, Lillian had been drawn into this orbit of tireless devotion, helping her mother with these endless acts of service. In stark contrast stood Deirdre's younger sister, Teresa. Aunt Terry, as she was known, bore the family's Scarlet Woman label due to a youthful lapse in judgment involving a dimly lit movie theater. Though she had long since settled into a respectable life with her second husband, Eamon, and their 3 kids, the stigma lingered. Deirdre's disdain for Teresa only deepened after discovering that her sister had lost her virginity at 16, whereas Deirdre had waited until her wedding night. The fallout sparked a bitter feud that spread like wildfire through the family, embedding deep-rooted resentment between the sisters. Despite her mother's hostility, Lillian maintained a warm, close relationship with Aunt Terry. It was just yesterday afternoon that I overheard it all. I had gone to fetch a mop from the kitchen to clean up a child's spilled drink in the store. As I reached the doorway, I heard Lillian's voice, unusually animated, pouring out her thoughts to Aunt Terry. I paused, curiosity holding me in place. "Aunt Terry, I always thought by now we'd have a family," Lillian confessed. "I was so sure it would bring us closer. Ethan and I both want kids so much, but it's just not happening. And now it feels like the cracks in our marriage are only getting wider." Terry's reply was direct, as always. "Lillian, have you tried showing him some affection? Hug him, kiss him, maybe even seduce him? Men respond to warmth." Lillian's voice wavered. "I've tried, Terry. I really have. But he doesn't believe me anymore, and honestly, I can't blame him. I've become so judgmental, so prudish. I wish I could be the woman I was when we first got married." "It's not too late," Terry encouraged. "You need to shake things up. Say something bold, something that will get his attention." Lillian hesitated. "Like what?" "Tell him you're thinking about having an affair," Terry said bluntly. "Tell him your love life has gone stale, and you need to reignite the spark. Trust me, it'll make him see things differently." Lillian sounded horrified. Ethan would lose his mind. He's so proud of being a good husband and provider. If he even suspected I was thinking about something like that, he'd throw me out. "Exactly," Terry replied. "It'll shock him, but it might also open the door to change." Those words clung to me as I returned to the store, mop in hand, trying to process the conversation I had overheard. And now, as Lillian sat across from me at the breakfast table, it was clear she was picking up where that discussion had left off. "Are we heading for a breakup?" I asked, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. "Is that what you think this is? Because from my side, I love you just as much as I ever have. I know the struggle to start a family has been brutal for both of us, but it only makes me want to hold on to you more." Her eyes searched mine, her resolve wavering for a moment. The weight of her words and the truth they carried filled the room. This wasn't just a conversation about love or desire. It was about fighting for the life we had built together. "What's occupying your thoughts? It feels like we already spend as much time together as possible. Each morning we're side by side, and every evening after your long day at work, we share quiet moments in the garden. I know those moments mean as much to you as they do to me. Sure, perhaps we could go out more on weekends, but with the store's workload increasing this season, it's been tough. Ethan, don't you feel like our intimacy has stagnated? When was the last time we truly connected? When did we last share a deep kiss, or when I settled comfortably on your lap? How long has it been since you let your hands roam over me, like you used to, with that spontaneity I loved? We've fallen into a pattern, and that pattern is becoming more entrenched every day. I could have pointed out that the affection had waned on my end because she'd spent years rejecting my advances, but I held back. I wanted to hear her out. "You're right," I said. "It's been a long time. What do you think we should do about it?" "Ethan, you won't like this," she began hesitantly. "But I've been thinking. Maybe if I had an affair with someone else, it would rekindle something between us. Perhaps seeing another man desire me would remind you of how you once did." The audacity of her suggestion hit me like a jolt. Was this truly her solution? Blaming me for the growing chasm between us? Yet I didn't react angrily. "Do you honestly think that would work?" I asked. She was caught off guard, unprepared for my response. Her expression was a mix of shock and disbelief, as though she'd expected outright rejection. "Oh, Ethan, what are you saying? You're not supposed to agree with me." I softened my tone, giving her a way forward. "You've given me a lot to consider. Let me mull it over while I'm at the store, and we'll discuss it again later." A couple of hours later, she returned, peeking around the corner tentatively. Her curiosity and apprehension were plain to see. I invited her in. "Lillian, I've been thinking about what you said, and I believe your idea has merit. But if we go down this road, there will be a few non-negotiable rules." She looked flabbergasted. Her expression embodied sheer bewilderment. I continued calmly. "First, this arrangement must apply equally to both of us. Second, I'll choose your partner, and you'll choose mine. Since you know the women at the soap factory well, find someone for me who's as beautiful as you, younger, if possible. Most importantly, she must be open to all the things you've always refused to do. She should be comfortable with the lights on, willing to explore every position, and be more adventurous in the things you've always avoided." Lillian's eyes widened as I laid out the terms. "You'll need to have a detailed conversation with her to ensure she's okay with everything. In return, I'll take her to dances, spoil her with gifts, and treat her well. Meanwhile, I'll pick a couple of young, attractive men for you. Don't worry about finances, I'll cover all their expenses from our savings." For a moment she was silent. "Leave the arrangements to me," she finally said, "though maybe this is really about confronting my own inhibitions." Then she paused, as if unsure whether to continue, before retreating to the house to think things over. I was indifferent to the outcome. Whether she embraced this idea or rejected it, I had positioned myself advantageously. If she reignited our passion, I'd welcome it. If she explored her desires and returned more open and adventurous, it would benefit us both. And if things fell apart entirely, though I hoped they wouldn't, we'd still be better off than remaining trapped in the emotional void of our marriage. To my surprise, Lillian agreed to the terms. While I began scouting potential partners for her, she worked through her reservations and even started taking pride in presenting me as desirable. One evening, I found her sorting through photos, selecting the ones where I appeared most attractive. "The women at work think you have beautiful eyes and a charming smile," she said with a shy grin. Their compliments seemed to lift her spirits. Gradually, affection began to flow more freely between us. She'd sit on my lap, and we'd share unrestrained kisses that felt reminiscent of our early days together. Our lovemaking, while still cautious, became warmer and more tender. After a few weeks, she announced that a woman named Carol had agreed to my conditions and wanted to meet me. I kept the identity of her potential partner a secret, hinting only that she'd recognize him when the time came. Despite her attempts to pry, I refused to divulge more. We arranged to meet Carol at a riverside pub called The Elling on a warm summer evening. Lillian and I arrived early, strolling hand in hand down the bustling road. I felt an unusual calm, certain that whatever unfolded, I had nothing to lose. Lillian appeared stiff and uneasy, her posture betraying a discomfort she couldn't quite conceal. Although she outwardly accepted the arrangement I had suggested concerning my prospective romantic interest, her demeanor hinted at an undercurrent of jealousy she seemed unable to suppress. Deep within, I suspected she might entertain the notion of a dalliance herself, though no such opportunity had arisen to tempt her. We settled into our seats at the table, me with a pint of Everard's bitters, and her with her habitual half-lime beer, elegantly served in a delicate glass. As was customary, I purchased a packet of the latest Golden Wonder salt and vinegar crisps for her, while I indulged in my favorite salted peanuts. I share these details to paint a portrait of the everyday nuances of life among the upper echelon. Before long, I rose to greet Carol, who had just spotted Lillian and was making her way across the lawn toward us. Carol's presence was striking, a friendly and open-minded woman with sleek dark blonde hair cascading down her back, and a shapely figure accentuated by a snug, knee-length dress in a vibrant peacock hue. She greeted Lillian warmly with a hug before turning to me, where I met her with a kiss on the cheek and a gentle hand squeeze. Excusing myself briefly, I ventured inside to fetch her a drink and soon returned with a beefeater and tonic for her and another pint for myself. We settled into the casual rhythms of conversation as we awaited her slightly delayed arrival. Over the next few minutes, Carol and I exchanged light banter, subtly appraising one another as we spoke. It seemed we both felt content with the unspoken agreement we'd reached, though it became apparent that Lillian's satisfaction with her role in the arrangement was steadily waning. Events appeared to unfold seamlessly until Lillian suddenly stood and exclaimed, "Oh, look! There's Aaron's punt! Hi, Aaron!" Her enthusiasm was clear as she waved at our old friend, who was leisurely drifting upriver in his flatboat. Aaron, a farmer who managed his family's land downstream in Mount Sorrel, harbored a strong preference for traveling by horse or navigating the waterways in his punt, eschewing cars altogether. Each week, he delivered an assortment of fresh vegetables to sell to those living along the canal, houseboat residents, and a select group of local customers. Towering and powerfully built from years of physical labor, Aaron's sun-bleached hair and bronzed skin spoke of long days spent under the open sky. His measured, deliberate speech carried the unmistakable cadence of a Leicestershire accent, and his quiet warmth was as evident as the gentle smile that seemed more at home on his face than any spoken word. It occurred to me instantly that he might be a potential romantic match for Lillian. Their friendship was deep-rooted, and while it remained unspoken, I sensed an unacknowledged affection between them. Yet I had little doubt that Aaron's heart was ultimately bound to his cousin Annalise, a university student soon to graduate, a destiny seemingly understood by everyone except the two of them. Life, however, has a habit of defying expectations. As Aaron joined us at the table and was introduced to Carol, the energy between them shifted noticeably. Within moments, their mutual attraction became evident, their lingering glances and shared smiles signaling a budding connection. The conversation at the table faltered, gradually giving way to an expectant silence as Lillian and I observed the chemistry unfolding before us. It was less than 30 minutes later when Carol found herself seated in Aaron's punt, the pair setting off together to explore whatever adventures awaited them downstream, perhaps even the cozy refuge of his grandmother's feather bed. Lillian turned to me with a wry laugh. "Well, Ethan, you sly devil, you had this all planned out, didn't you?" she teased. Meeting her gaze, I allowed a mischievous smile to surface. Let's just say it was one of the possible outcomes I foresaw, I replied. But rest assured, my dear, there wasn't a single scenario where you and I ended up hurt. She arched an eyebrow, her tone shifting to something both playful and tender. So you're sticking with me, are you? Think you can manage my imperfections? Because it's all yours if you want it. Just promise me you'll let me try to make you happy. Please. I took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. I've always known you've never truly wanted an affair. That much has been clear from the start. Maybe I nudged things a little, but I'd never intend to hurt you. You know that, don't you? Her expression softened, and she nodded in understanding. In the quiet corners of my mind, a familiar voice spoke again. Teach her how to find real happiness, it urged, and then see what unfolds. It struck me as a worthwhile path to follow. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.